So Travis, are we online recording?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for attending the April 17th board meeting. Do a quick roll call, see where we stand on forum.
Yeah, so in person, we have Todd Goldman, Valerie Gager, and Jay Snodgrass representing Kanawha County. We have Bobby Spry and Tom Tolliver representing Charleston. We have Heidi Adams representing Bell, Larry Bailey for Dunbar, Maurice Anderson for Montgomery, Mayor Casebolt for Nitro. Therefore, we have a quorum. That pops up and here first.
Wonderful. So the packets were sent out either email or mail, and the board meeting minutes from February were in there. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at those? Are there any comments, questions, revisions?
I'll make a motion that the minutes be approved as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second that the minutes be approved. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have the financial statements. Jessica.
Good morning, everybody. Happy April. If we take a look at Schedule 2, that's our statement of revenues expenses. You'll see our operating expenses exceeded our operating revenue by 1.1 million. That is on the low end of our monthly average, happily. March was, of course, our first full month with the route changes in effect, so we were expecting to see some lower expenses, especially in the fixed route wages and fuel costs. So to kind of get a rough idea of what changed, I compared March 2025 to March 2024. I adjusted 2024's wages to 2025 rates to get an apples-to-apples comparison. Excuse me. And if you look at it, the fixed route wages decreased by 23% year over year, which is in line with the decrease in service hours for the same period. The fringe benefits, unfortunately, were relatively flat, but PEIA premiums are included in the fringe benefits, and we knew that the expense for that increased 15% over the year, so that kind of absorbed any potential savings in that bucket. But with all current unknowns being equal and factoring in the wage increases for 2025 and PEIA increases again, it still looks like we'll see 1.4 million less in wage costs going to next year's budget. And if we had not made any fixed route changes, excuse me, my allergies are killing me. Okay, so I also looked at fuel, and for that, it made more sense to me to look at the gallons consumed versus cost, because paying invoices, you have timing differences, and it won't necessarily be apples to apples. But when you look at the gallons for March 2025 versus 2024, we used 2,700 fewer gallons, and that equates to about $8,500 for the month under the current fuel contract. If you compare March 2025 to the average consumption so far this year, the savings are about $9,600 for the month. So that's an annual savings of $100,000 to $115,000 in fuel costs based on the current contract. Our new contract is up in November, but still lower consumption is good either way. Now, these are promising results and good signs we're moving in the right direction towards a budget balance for next year. But we have to keep in mind this is 1 month of data, and we're extracting it from there. And there are a lot of moving parts to the budget, but we are on the right track, so that's very promising. And I believe we're doing the right thing.
But there's no chance that we'll run into a fuel consumption issue with the required quantities in the contract?
I don't believe so, no. We're on track for that.
Okay.
And that's just our consumption. Nobody else has stopped pumping their fuel, so we sell more than we use.
Okay. That's our biggest diesel, not too much diesel primarily.
Yes, that's diesel for us, yes.
And since I've interrupted you already, on Schedule 2 for fringe benefits, there's like a $250,000 overage compared to budget. What is that attributable to?
I'm sure that's payroll taxes, where we have the maintenance department is fully staffed this year versus it wasn't last year. You'll see the wages are a little bit up too, and that falls in line with that as well.
So it wasn't budgeted to be fully staffed?
We
This is compared to budget, not last year.
We were, I may have under budgeted a little bit, I may have under projected a little bit. I'm not sure if we hired more than we thought we were, but.
Because labor's up 100,000.
Yes.
But fringes are up 250.
Yes, yes, payroll taxes, pension, I think I might have under budgeted that line a little bit.
Okay, and then on material supplies, there's a $240,000 difference. Well,
I don't know, I'd have to dig into that to see what is really driving that one.
did Travis cause all that?
It's Travis.
Because there's always every month he wants to do some project that's expensive.
Yeah, that might have something to do with it, with a bunch of repairs that we've had to make and that kind of thing.
Okay.
One thing I'll touch on too, as Jessica notes the fuel program, we've gone through an exercise, and I think I mentioned this last board meeting, but for purchasing and for finance to come together to do an accurate estimate of what the administration of that fuel program costs KRT. We have kept basically a surcharge that we charge all the entities that use our program. It's what is it now, Travis? 5 cents for gas, and then it's 13 cents if we deliver the fuel. That's been the same since 1996, I believe, when we started that program. So we did an estimate of what does it actually cost us, and we're basically each year we're shorting ourselves about $75,000. So I've been in talks already with the county manager to say, hey, here's exactly what this cost us, to let them know and to then talk with the agencies that use our program about the anticipation of next year when we put this out for bid, that we build in more than the 5 cents. It would go up to
I think it was 8 and
8 and 20 cents instead of
Yeah.
5 and 13. So that'll help us recoup some. It won't necessarily save our budget, but again, I want you to know that behind the scenes we're trying to do everything we can to save every penny, and bringing that up to speed is something I'm glad our team has worked on. So thank you, Travis and Angie and Jessica, everyone who did that.
I assume sheriff and the ambulance authority are the two other biggest users?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Senior services, yeah, yes.
Anything else before I move on?
I have an unrelated question about investments.
Mhm.
Did we ever find the?
Yes, and it was obviously out of date, so we signed a new one with Druid that was aligned with like the board that it on.
And-
Okay.
Yeah, we had talked, so next board meeting, we will put it on the agenda to formally memorialize with a motion that we approved. But we have changed those to the percentages that the the investment committee, and then the entire board kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, because so with those meeting minutes came out, it dawned on me like it did you, that we had in 2017, they're different. So
Yeah.
just to clarify, what we're working with in 2017 is no longer in play. We're gonna, next meeting, clear that up.
Perfect.
But there is only one investment strategy right now.
Yes,
Good.
and it is what the investment committee agreed on. We cleared that all up. Well, speaking of investments, March was obviously not a good month for anybody due to the market volatility, but I'm hoping that'll rebound once everything stabilizes a little bit. It was a good month for the levy. We received $2 million, bringing our year-to-date total to $8.1 million, which is a 12% increase over last year. Outside of our financial performance, I did want to make the board aware that Truist, they discovered that somebody had presented a fraudulent check for KRT, but they caught it real quick. I had left my desk to go talk to somebody or have a meeting or something, and I came back to 2 voicemails, one on my personal cell phone, and emails. They were just all over me, so I called them back and they said, hey, this looks fake, and I go, yes, that is fake. So they caught it, and then looking at the transactions for the day, there was another one that had been presented the same day. So they stopped that from being paid, and they stopped the one that they found from being paid. And we are implementing, what is it called, positive pay, where we tell them everything that we issue. Say, we expect West Virginia American Water for this much, and we pay this guy this much, and they were not gonna pay anything that we have not previously approved moving forward. And until that gets implemented, they're emailing me every day with, hey, this is everything that has been presented to us today. Is this okay to pay? So they are on top of it, and I was really impressed with them, so. But we're gonna try to prevent that moving forward.
It's another frustrating administrative step that finance has to go through. But
Days and days of work, but it's fine.
a real thing. People are taking checks out of the mail and changing them and cashing them, and they're legitimate checks. They just change who they're made out to, and then you're kind of stuck in a situation where, what do you do?
Is that all done electronically behind the scenes through QuickBooks or whatever accounting system you use, or do you literally have to send them a register of the checks that were issued?
Currently, I send them a register. But we're going to build a report within the system that I can just spit out and upload, and they're helping me build that.
Okay.
It's gonna take a few weeks, but like I said, they're emailing me every day in between now and then. So, I think what they said originally happened, because we did issue a vendor check that got somehow intercepted in the mail, and then they washed that check and made it out to themselves. That one got cashed, but for final fraud report and BB&T Truist thinks that we're gonna be able to recoup that. But they stopped, so once they were able to cash that check, they created fraudulent checks with that information on it and started presenting them, and that's when we caught it.
Mm.
So right now, the loss is about $4,000, but we're almost positive we're gonna recoup it. So.
Because the signature lines on those checks are almost so faint, you can just barely see.
Mhm.
Why is that?
It's just the way it prints out, because they print on the check.
And nobody's ever said you need to improve this, and it's almost as if they're not there.
No, nobody's ever said anything.
Okay.
We can modify the electronic signature.
Darker.
Yeah, we can try it, see if that'll help. I mean, but again, this positive pay is, it's a good thing, but it's just.
It's a pain, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a pain to understand the process, which we can save us money, potential fraud.
Okay.
Is anybody investigating that as far as postal service or anything?
The postal inspectors will look at that, because they call it check washing. It's a thing that happens on a daily basis. It's actually a scam that hits more, obviously a lot of those scams target senior populations, et cetera. But there's also, so we think through the process that it was likely that when we sent the check to the vendor, we control, our mail goes either to the post office itself or down in this little blue box, which is harder to obviously tamper with. But when we send that to the vendor, if they have a physical, just a mailbox like you and I have, there's much more chance that someone could come by and just swipe the checks out of the mailbox and then play with them on there. So that's what we think may have happened, because the check was sent to Georgia and the individual who cashed it was in Georgia. But it's hard to connect those dots. But the postal inspectors do take that seriously. If they catch it on their side, it's a different process. But this is kind of happening after the fact. Where thankfully Jessica was able to look at it and catch it. Thank you.
That's all I have, unless anybody else has questions.
Sounds like there's been plenty of questions for you.
Oh, it's been exciting.
Yeah, read that.
It's been real exciting.
Okay, so the financial statements will be part of the meeting minutes for future reference. We'll move on to number 5, Sean.
Yeah, so this is invoices in excess of $5,000. We don't have any invoices in excess of $5,000 that are outside of our budget that I would normally bring up, but I do have a situation I just want to make the board aware of. It kind of goes in line with Jessica's frustrations of things that are just making our administrative life more complicated. In late 2023, we ordered some printed card tickets, just bus passes, and we ordered them in advance because during COVID, we had ordered some bus tickets, and it took, like a year and a half to get them because they were printed by one vendor in England, and we ran out. So to prevent that, we ordered a whole bunch of bus tickets, and we ordered them earlier than we needed them, so we would have them in stockpile. We ordered them from Wasabi, which is the company you all are familiar with that does our electronic ticketing, etc. So these tickets are compliant with the new validators and scanning them, etc. So we did that to be preemptive and to be prepared, and what happened was we ordered the tickets in late 2023, got them in February of 2024. We didn't need to use them until around
Summer.
Yeah, it was let's say September-ish, August, September of 2024. Those tickets, passengers started saying, hey, these tickets aren't working. And at first we kind of gaslit the passengers. We were like, oh, these are brand new, like they have to work. And they worked on our end because Travis tested them when they got here. Well, it turns out that through doing some investigation, that these tickets were sent to us and they were set to expire 6 months after they were sent to us. Historically, we've never had paper tickets that expire. That wasn't part of the contract or the purchase agreement we had with Wasabi. So we've been working behind the scenes to not pay that. There's a $25,000 invoice for these tickets that essentially we can't use at So we have started printing those tickets internally, just on paper, which will save us money long term anyways. But we're going through the process of communicating with Wasabi that, hey, we would like to cancel this invoice because the product we got didn't, we're non-conforming goods essentially. We were told that it was implied that they would expire, but in history of bus, we've been doing this for 54 years, we don't have bus passes that expire. The closest thing to expiring bus passes will be in the future with these mobile ticketing. When you purchase a bus pass, there is an expiration on it, the electronic, because that's the way we then go back to Wasabi to reconcile outstanding, how we pay Wasabi for how many tickets were sold, etc. So it's a complicated situation, but recognizing that these are taxpayer funds, we're going to protect that and say, hey, we didn't get the product that you told us, and we're going to take every avenue we can to remedy that. But I wanted to make the board aware. It's been some frustration we've had behind the scenes with Wasabi related to these products.
Okay, so that brings us up to old business. Kurt?
What, the operations?
Oh, that
Yeah,
is.
you're right, Sorry. He has good news.
Good news?
He does.
Are you sure? No, but I do have some good news. We have closed 3 claims last month. We had one additional claim of an individual that has fell on our bus. We also have an additional claim, but it'll be put off to the at-fault driver where one of our vehicles got hit. And there were individuals on the bus, and they sent a notice that they wanted to sue us. So we sent the police report and got that taken care of. So we're working through some of these older claims too. I'm hoping to get several of these 2022 ones finally finished. But other than that, closing claims, like that.
Do we have any hail damage anywhere from the buses?
Luckily, we didn't have anything, we didn't have any hail right here. I don't think we actually had a bus out in Sissonville or Elkview with Clendenin at the time. Nor did we have one in Dummer, so we got pretty lucky. Chris and Travis did a fantastic job once the warnings came through to move the buses on the lot into the garage. I think we all saw the storm coming, and we knew that the hail was no joke. And for those that got hit with the hail, I mean, we saw the damage. So we got very lucky. I was afraid of just calling the insurance company the next morning and saying, hey, we got about 30 windshields that need to be replaced. So we got lucky.
Good.
And also, I did not mention this last meeting, but the pipes freezing, the insurance company actually covered that. So that was a bit of good news as well. And that repair has been finished.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a good relationship with their insurance company.
Well, good. So we're on the operations report.
Yeah, and Jacob's out this week, but I'm going to go over the operations report. On operations report 1, you'll see down there for March, our on-demand service actually went from 2,500 rides up to 3,700 rides. That's a good thing and a bad thing, and I'll get into that when we get to the route monitoring status of their new business. But individuals are using that system. One thing I'll also note there under the first table in our operations report is our ridership, total ridership change it's down 5%. The amazing thing with that really is if our service hours go down 24%, but our ridership only dropped 5%. I mean, to me, that indicates we made a smart decision as far as how we implemented those changes and decreasing the frequency of those routes. It did impact people. I mean, obviously a 5% loss is substantial, but that's also taking into account that there's no Sunday service in March also. I think all of those things considered, that shows that the changes were necessary and that they are positive. If you can only lose 5%, it's like drop your expenses by 24%. That's pretty dramatic. We also see that by making those changes, our fixed route on-time performance is the highest I've seen in a long time, it's 87%. And our passengers per revenue hour obviously jumped up to 12.61, so that's getting us closer and closer to, when we looked at those exorbitantly high, how much we subsidize routes, by decreasing the frequency, more people are on each individual bus, which is the goal for transportation in general. If we switch to operations report 2, you'll see up there for March, our day passes sold via phone, you'll see jumped up to 33, almost 3,400. People are embracing the, we talked about Wasabi and some of the frustrations with their ticketing, but the online and the phone use of purchasing tickets continues to go up month after month, which is positive for us. Down in the bottom under ridership programs, for me, I highlighted the Operation Transportation. We've been talking with Jan Dill's office this week about different strategies. Huntington has taken on this program now, and they are selling the tickets on the bus. And that's something we're looking at. We're currently here, if you qualify for that program as a veteran, you come into our office and you get a card that you display to the drivers. But we're trying to figure out there are ways that we can grow that program by making it easier for passengers to qualify. And on Operations Report 3, our on-demand ridership data. One thing that is positive for me from March is the net demand rate. So this is the percentage of people who got on their phone and asked for a ride with KRT Plus that had an eligible ride. 93%, 93.9 is pretty darn good. Now, only 70% actually completed the rides. That means that they may have canceled it. They may have, something came up on their end that prevented us from actually completing the ride. But again, in those 3 zones that we're doing the pilot project, 93% of the rides that were asked for could have been accomplished. So that's really positive for us. And the last table there, the ridership by routes, you see some of those routes that were up near the $40 number. So South Hills now is still at $21.16. It's still an outlier. It's still high. I mean, obviously in Fort Hill, the trolley also, the trolley actually went up some. But those costs are still something we're paying attention to. We'll talk about during route monitoring. But they have gone down dramatically.
Only because there's fewer buses, the operation expenses went down, not because ridership has changed.
Correct. Ridership has gone down a little bit on those routes too, if you look. Because those routes are, the frequency is happening half as much. But it also, again, if the routes are only running half the time, then if the ridership remains close to that, then yes, that's taking our cost per passenger and it's dropping it dramatically.
Because the ridership doesn't appear to be half.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Again, that goes back to that. If you lose 5% of your ridership, but you cut 24% of your operating costs, that's a win on paper as close as you can get to it. It's not fun to cut any ridership, but that was the goal, was to save money.
Okay, appreciate that. Now we're on the maintenance facility update.
Okay.
Luckily, there's not a whole lot this month. Kind of front loaded all those projects, but we did complete the piping, minor details excluded, but yeah, the insurance did pay for it. The roof 100% complete, and right now we're just kind of focusing on safety equipment. We had to order a new aerial basket, so we don't want to put people 16 feet in the air with a dilapidated piece of equipment. And gonna prepare for the next project. We should be receiving our 14 vehicles that we ordered for on demand in the next month. So
Where's the pit project?
that is 98% done. It's just waiting on me to give the final signature of the project, put it out to bid, and then whenever we put it out to bid, I would imagine 60 days, and then go from there.
Yeah, and we've also, so under the maintenance facility update, I've been in talks with Ron and his team at Wendell, who are working on the RFP there with Travis for the pits, but we've also been talking to them. I mentioned last year how was it the second time we've gone after that maintenance facility grant. We are still waiting for FTA to actually release that grant. I got some anxiety because it's always been April when in my head, I woke up one morning, I felt like a kid that didn't go to class for the finals. And I was like, oh my God, did we miss it? But it just hasn't been released yet. The changes in administrations, a lot of grants aren't open. They plan to be, but it just hasn't been opened up for anyone. So we're still waiting, and again, that is where we're gonna do it as a phase this time to show we have the match, and hopefully we'll be much more successful. It has to open for us to apply.
Okay.
You think they're gonna allow 20,000 researchers in the medical field and give us a bus station in Charleston, West Virginia? I'll give up on that. I hate to be the doom and gloom, but
Well, and it's
you
frustrating.
better do a good job of maintenance this building.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what you're seeing is that we're slowly putting Band-Aids and building up areas and putting roofs on a building that it's like putting tires on a car you wanna trade in. But in the meantime, if it's safety related, we're gonna do it. But you're
Oh,
right,
yeah,
it's
don't have a
frustrating.
choice,
Yeah,
yeah.
no other choice.
Okay, budget committee, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, we're at that time of year that Jessica gets excited to go through budgeting. And, if any board members want to be on the budget committee, we will be meeting at least one time, maybe twice between now and the next board meeting to sit down and go over, our budget for next year. I do talk to Jessica about this, and one of the big targets for this year is to get our department heads more ownership in their own budget. So historically, it's been a lot of how many employees do you need, and then Jessica would plug that in behind the scenes, and that's the budget we present. But our goal moving forward is to give those department heads more ownership of their departments and their finances also, with oversight from Jessica. But we think that can empower our department leaders to do even better things. But if anyone wants to be on that committee, please.
So several people here have done it before. It's usually 2 meetings. The first one's a little more involved. The second one's more to make sure things were cleaned up to our satisfaction. Hopefully you all are willing to do it again. I've always been involved. I'm happy to do it.
I'm happy to do it as well.
Okay.
I'm not a numbers girl. I'm more communications. So don't mind.
How many do you need?
Happy to volunteer again.
Is that how you?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, 3 or 4 is probably a good number.
If you need somebody, I'll definitely.
Yeah.
Is Michael online?
Michael's not on
Okay.
right now. I'll send an email after this also soliciting anyone who wasn't here
Okay.
to be involved in the budget process. But we'll tentatively say that Todd, Valerie, Jay, and Heidi are willing to serve.
Yeah, that works. Route monitoring on the airport.
Yeah, so route monitoring, the airport shuttle, and Travis will put this up on the, thank you, Travis. So currently our microtransit service operates Monday through Saturday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The outlier to that is that we have an airport shuttle that operates essentially the entire time that our fixed route is open, so 4 a.m. to 1 a.m. In the last several months, here you see on this chart, only 2 rides were requested outside that 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. window. And so what I would recommend and what we're going to do administratively is change the airport availability to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to mirror our normal microtransit. If we get demand and people call in and say, hey, we really need earlier late flights or pickups, then we can readdress that. But that's a substantial cost to us that we could save by maintaining the same hours for microtransit at the airport as it is microtransit in our pilot area. So I wanted to make the board aware of that before we made any changes. And we've communicated with the airport that these hours will likely change, and the airport understands and appreciates the service. We've been doing that service for a long time. You'll remember it started as a shuttle from the airport down to the hotels in Charleston. Now it's essentially anywhere in those 3 pilot zones can go to and from the airport. This is a minor change that would just shorten the window of time to 12 hours instead of almost 21 hours.
Okay.
The other thing I want to talk about under route monitoring is, and again, during the operations report, I mentioned that our microtransit pilot program has jumped up, 1,200 rides even just in the past month. it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. And the reason why I say that is, A, it's great that 93% of those rides could have been accomplished. What we've seen is there's some frustration on administratively because those rides until June or July, when Wasabi is able to turn on the payment program, they're essentially free. And so what we're seeing is several areas in those zones have it. It's not exploiting it. They're just using the system. They're using it a lot. About 80% of our rides go up to the city park area to one particular area. They figured out, hey, we can ride for free. Even though the bus comes every hour, they're using that system dramatically. And it's causing frustrations for our CAT passengers because a lot of their rides are now the system will group people and pull people together for efficiencies. But what it's doing, if 80% of our microtransit rides happen in one neighborhood, it's pulling those CAT passengers up that hill to City Park to go pick up those individuals. And there's frustrations amongst the CAT passengers because they're paying $3 each way. And during the pilot program is free for the microtransit passengers. So we share that frustration administratively. Any program that's free here is tough as we talk about how financially we're struggling. So every month that goes by that we don't have that paywall. I think once that paywall comes up and it costs the same to ride the bus, people will ride the bus. And it'll cut back on the amount of people using that instead of the City Park route. But I wanted to bring it up because we've had some passengers who have real valid concerns, especially CAT passengers who are frustrated at how long it's taking them to get from A to B because of the microtransit service. With the paywall up and with more vehicles coming, that will go down. I'm positive of that, but I just want to make the board aware that those numbers going up in 3,700 microtransit rides, that's great, but it's not a direct representation of how positive and how well that pilot project is working. Is how I would communicate that. And it's also, while the microtransit is free, when Jessica reports that, hey, our service hours are down 24%, and our ridership's only down 5%, well, our revenue from ridership is down more than that because those 3,700 trips are not $1.50 each, they're 0. So that's something to take into account also. And that's another situation where we're kind of held hostage by the software providers who can turn on that paywall. Travis and his team which is just him, has installed all of the hardware on the buses. They're all ready to go. It's just waiting behind the scenes to be able to turn it on. We've been told that's June. We'll stand by. Hopefully that happens. But again, I've communicated and our team communicates with the CAT passengers and we understand their frustrations because they are real. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to get to A to B. The way the system's been implemented has been tough for that. And it also goes back, we knew originally that microtransit is successful when it takes the place of fixed route. When you have both, you're not going to get a clear picture of if it's working or not working. And you're not going to reflect any cost savings because you're essentially doing 2 services instead of 1. So we're still looking at those numbers and those routes, especially the hill routes, because they are the prime candidates to be replaced with the microtransit service entirely. And we've displayed that, hey, we can take a pretty substantial group of people, 3,700 people, especially if they're all, almost 80% of them are coming from one neighborhood. We could pull off microtransit on South Hills and Fort Hill and some of those hill routes pretty easily. But it's just something I want to make the board aware, because you can look at a report and see numbers and it tells one story, but the reality is a little bit different. So we're monitoring that and again, just waiting on the date that we can implement that paywall. That'll help make more accurate data for us.
And we've got a pretty good time commitment on having that in place.
We do, yes.
Assuming they can perform.
Assuming they can perform, yes. It seems like things in transit will never happen as fast as you want them to. It's very frustrating.
I think that's everyone's shot.
Yeah, I think, but transit technology seems to be living decades in the past compared to what I would expect. So it's been very frustrating for our team. So So,
as we informed them of our frustration.
yes, yes.
Okay, Darren, are you ready to move on to
Yes.
mission and vision?
Yeah, so this next one, and Brianna's gonna help me with this, or actually do all of this, but, so at KRT, you know, one of the things that I've gone through and that KRT has helped me with was, I went through that Leadership West Virginia program, and one of the first things that stuck out to me, we had a discussion about leadership and mission and values in different places. And if you remember during the '60s, like you asked people at NASA, you know, what do you do here? You know, they were putting the person on the moon, right? It didn't matter if you were a janitor at NASA or if you were an astronaut. You knew what your mission was. And over the years, you know, at KRT, we have an idea. Hey, we get people places, right? I mean, we're public transportation, but what is our actual mission statement? What do we live by? What do we, you know, teach our employees from day one? And what do we have that both A, our riders can expect from us, B, what can, you know, taxpayers expect from us as far as being responsible, and then C, what can our employees expect from us as far as we're all moving in the same direction. And Brianna's done some work on this, and I'd love for her to let you all know.
Yeah, sure. So you'll find on the screen, as well as there are handouts going along, just an outline of what we have come up with. And so this was a fun project for me. This is something that I've worked with other folks on at different agencies before. But what I did was follow the best practices model in communications for this type of project, which starts with research. So I took several days and did research on both regional transit authorities and other similarly sized transit authorities across the United States, and looked at their missions, their visions, their core values, how they were presenting them, how many were they listing, you know, everything related to what others are doing that are similar to us. We then took that research and had a meeting and looked at what would be most appropriate for KRT, and this is what we came up with. So I'm not going to read everything to you. You can look through, but I do think that the mission, vision, and values align really, really well with what we're already doing and what our staff internally and our community externally can expect as we move forward. Travis, if you'll scroll down a little bit, one of the things that we looked at too, you'll see under professionalism in the second sentence, this was really important to me, that we are constantly looking to make improvements and better deliver on the core values. We know that when folks see those core values, we may not hit them 100% of the time. We're humans, you know, but the point is we're always going to seek to do better and to make those refinements so that we can make improvements. The third step in the best practices model is obviously to distribute and to communicate the mission, vision, values. Travis, if you'll scroll back up, I forgot one thing. We did work with Maple Creative, up a little bit more, sorry, to the logo. We did work with Maple Creative to do a rendition of the logo with the mission incorporated in that we can use moving forward. So that'll be a good asset that we have currently that we can use as we communicate this out. And the goal is to make sure that we hit all of our internal audiences. When new hires come in, we're going to make sure that they're familiar, obviously, with the mission, vision, core values. We can do posters downstairs in the garage. We can incorporate this into trainings in person. We are going to put this on our website. We are going to just continue to include this in digital resources moving forward. So that, again, this is both internal for our staff and our culture, as well as external, so that our community knows what our goal is and where we're going moving forward. The last step in our best practices model is to evaluate. So in about 4 to 6 months, I hope to look back, see how effective the communication part has been, you know, how are we doing in the trainings, and how are we doing with getting staff to kind of understand this new kind of guidance and document. So that's kind of the plan moving forward, and I'll let Sean give a summary if there's anything else.
Sure. Well, I thank Brianna for going through the process, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And I think this is part of a bigger approach for us to also not only communicate what is our mission and our values, but I sent out with the board packet our April employee update. So Brianna's done a great job of creating an newsletter for our employees, and the idea there is any way we can, Brett and the union and I will sit down and we talk about things, but if we can communicate it to the employees as a general whole of some of the initiatives we're having, the more communication we have, the better overall. But this idea of connecting people to opportunities, if you clean buses, if you are a mechanic, you are accomplishing this. You're packing the parachute for everybody else. You're doing the work, right? I mean, one can't exist without the other. So that's what we want to make sure we communicate with this. And I'm proud of it. And happy to see it move forward.
I'm glad you all recognize this because frankly, I'm surprised we didn't have something like this in place until now. Every organization should. Any questions about the mission and vision statement? Okay, before we go on to public comments, I'm just going to point out that I've been in this seat now for a number of years. I don't remember exactly, but board elections come up in July. I don't particularly want to be president any longer, so it'll be an opportunity for somebody else to fill this role. It's not hard. It's enjoyable. You get to spend a little more time talking to Sean. It doesn't take a lot of extra work, but at times, I mean, most of the time it doesn't. But I always point that out because there's time now for people to think about who it is that they'd like to serve in that leadership role in the future.
You better be finding somebody to take your place then.
Be careful if you speak first.
I shall not serve. I shall not laugh. I'm nominated.
Just don't miss the meeting then. That's how that happens.
Is there anybody here for public comments?
We don't have anyone here in person that signed up for public comments, but I did want to touch on something, and I know Mayor Summers is on the line. And this could have came up during route monitoring, but I wanted to bring it up. Mayor Summers reached out, and feel free to jump in and interrupt me, Mayor. A few weeks ago, actually almost a month ago, and I will say this, Mayor Summers isn't exactly, she's not on our board officially, but we want to talk about someone who's involved and who stays in tune with what's going on with KRT. It's Mayor Summers.
Our next board president.
And Mayor Summers.
No, thank you.
There she is.
I thought you were my friend, not.
Yeah, so Mayor Summers reached out and she had a legitimate concern, and it was the fact that with the changes to our service impacting the Clendenin route, that there was no way for individuals in Clendenin to get to Kroger or a grocery store on Saturdays. So not just Sundays, but Saturdays with the changes to service. So what we did was kind of behind the scenes instituted a trial project to take individuals from Clendenin to the Crossings Mall to Kroger on Saturday mornings and pick them up. And we've gone through that for several weeks. We haven't had the feedback or the adoption of that program the way that we were hoping to, but I wanted to bring it up and to give Mayor Summers credit for reaching out. And what she said to me, and she can correct me here, was, hey, let's try to do this, and if it, shame on us if we don't try, because food deserts are a real thing. It's something we don't want to create here at KRT. So if there's something we can do to improve that, we're going to try it. And we did try it, and I think it hasn't shown that people are adopting it. Hopefully that means that those individuals are going to the grocery store during the weekday. They've adapted. They're strong people who've figured out a way. But I wanted to at least bring that up and give Mayor Summers credit for reaching out and asking us to do that.
Well, Sean, I really appreciate you bringing it up because I was going to call you after this meeting. To my knowledge, we had 2 weeks ago, I think we had 2 or 3 people that rode it because, we had bad weather and they loved it. Last week, we had 2 ladies that sat on the bench waiting for the bus that didn't come. And so they're very disappointed. And I'd like, if you guys can find it in your heart, now that the weather is getting better, because, we had, when you and I did do this trial, and I'm most appreciative that you are willing to try, because I do think if we give it time, and now that the weather is doing better, I think we'll have more participants. But like I say, we had 2 women, because they called me and told me they sat on the bench waiting for the bus that didn't come, because I guess that your trial was over. But I do appreciate you do working with me, because you are very receptive, because I do call you a lot, about every other day, about something. And, you haven't hung up on me yet. But I do appreciate it, and I do think it will work as the weather does get better. But you know what? You guys have to look at it, you have to monitor, you have to see, and I would work with you anytime, to work on this and, to even ride the bus a couple of times to see. But I think when we did our trial, I don't think the weather was so good. But thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Mayor. Any other?
But so if you want to reconsider, let's do a couple more Saturdays, let me know, and we'll advertise it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think, is that the end of public comments?
Yeah.
All right, appreciate your attendance, we'll stand adjourned.